Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999 brought in the 1999 Constitution. On the 21st of February 2005, former President Olusegun Obasanjo inaugurated the National Political Reform Conference, NPRC. The conference witnessed the presentation of the research for the Nigeria out-of-country voting, otherwise called the Diaspora voting. Honorable Collins Nweke was Executive Secretary of Nigerians in Diaspora Europe at the time and oversaw the initial research into Nigerian out-of-country voting. He led us into the conception.
The 2005 National Political Reforms Conference, as launched by President Olusegun Obasanjo, was seen within the diaspora community as a momentous occasion in the sense that for the diaspora, it provided a much-needed opportunity to begin to deepen the galvanization process that President Obasanjo had initiated when he, took over as president of Nigeria in 1999, and actually proactively reached out to Nigeria as part of that missing link in the accelerated development of Nigeria that was very, very critical at that moment. Now, it was important to begin to look more at the long-term goals rather than the quick wins. Of course, the quick wins are important because, of course, they, kind of ginger people up. They motivate the actors to, see immediate results and begin to drive them. Nonetheless, the major eyes were on the long-term goal. It was very important to get all stakeholders involved in this, and there couldn't have been a better way of, securing not just their involvement, but also their buy-in in what NIDO was planning to do, than convening a summit. That summit held in London at the Nigeria High Commission. Resolutions of the summit was the out-of-country voting, as we refer to it then. Today, it is being called diaspora voting. We thought it was something Nigeria needed to have, and considering that it was a national political reforms conference, and when we did, we found out that yes, it is a constitutional thing. No matter how much goodwill existed, no matter how germane the idea was, if it is a constitutional issue, then it's got to be dealt with at the National Political Reforms Conference. And so it was also, adopted. And closely linked to that was a resolve by the diaspora that attended the summit that the out-of-country voting, the diaspora voting, would have to be an all-of-society affairs.
The 1999 Constitution did not provide for diaspora voting, but over the years, the continuous absence of a diaspora vote in the Constitution has been questioned, and even when the opportunity to make it work came, it was surprisingly rejected.
Legislators in Nigeria who have difficulties letting their fellow Nigerians who are living outside the country and contributing immensely to the development of the country, that the question could even be asked whether they should vote or not. I think history will not remember them well. And when they go back to bed at night, I hope they will cast back their mind and think of, this sort of thing and actually begin to, think differently and act differently. This is appalling. And the time has come to call people out. The time has come to, begin to make the pendulum swing differently.
The Nigerian National Assembly failed to pass the bill calling for the introduction of diaspora voting into the electoral schedules.
That is why I am championing the bill. It requires an amendment to the Constitution of Nigeria. I have always felt that every Nigerian abroad who is of age should be entitled to vote and be voted for in Nigeria. But just beyond that, we have enough problems as it is, I know, with the electoral systems in Nigeria. But I think that, by the time we involve Nigerians in diaspora, it will compel INEC to implement something that they have never wanted to implement, that's electronic voting. That is the only way we can make sure that that is done, through making sure that Nigerians in diaspora are able to vote.
It is worthy of note, however, that out-of-country voting is an international best practice that several countries have adopted for their diaspora citizens.
Diaspora voting is fast emerging as an international best practice. Now, some analysts will tell you that there is something cultural about, out-of-country voting, where citizens of, the countries are allowed to vote in national elections, no matter where in the world they are. Some will refer to the fact that it is an ingrained practice or culture, political culture, within the francophone African countries, actually deriving from their colonial history with France, whereas in the Anglophone countries deriving from their colonial past with Britain, haven't quite embraced out-of-country voting. Well, let us assume in the worst case scenario that is the case. Well, it is only good things that you emulate, because at the heart of the argument around out-of-country voting is the fact that citizens of any country remain citizens of that country, and that it is your right to be part of the political process, whether as a candidate or even as a voter, which is why some countries in Africa, as a matter of fact, have actually gone as far as reserving some seats in their parliaments for their diaspora constituencies.
Since the return of democratic governance in Nigeria, Nigerians in the diaspora have been clamoring for the diaspora voting and an opportunity to be part of the electoral process.
I conceive diaspora voting. I think it's something that we shouldn't really have to struggle for, considering all our contributions as Nigerians living in the diaspora to the economic well-being of Nigerians and its people. A lot of us send support Nigerians. We support our families back home, and we have major investments in Nigeria because of our patriotism and our cultural affinity with the country. So for me, it's a matter of economic and socio-political justice that Nigerians in diaspora should be included in the political process and should be able to vote and be voted for.
The pursuit to amend Section 77 and 117 of the Constitution of Nigeria to include the participation of Nigerians in diaspora in the electoral process has been on the table for a long time. As a matter of fact, there was a recent outreach led by Prince Omole of the NDVC, Mr. Wale Adesanya from Canada, NEPAC USA, and a few others that moved the needle forward. So we have moved beyond clamoring. We have taken tangible steps, in my opinion. But the disappointment came from the 269 lawmakers then that voted it down. And I'm not sure the real reason why. Either they are afraid that they're going to lose control to diasporans, or they're afraid of transparency and accountability, which is one of the things that diaspora will really demand. We have practiced it, we have experienced it here in international community. And as a matter of fact, NEPA itself has sponsored more than 20 political aspirants to win their offices. And it would be great for us to bring all of these experiences back to our own country as part of the nation building. I know that it's going to take a whole lot to make this happen. We're not naive of the depth and breadth of the technology, the infrastructure, the legal framework, the voting method, voters registration, cybersecurity, and all of the stuff that it would require. But we need to be at the table to have this conversation in a very civil way. Our inputs needs to be recognized beyond TikTok and WhatsApp. We have to engage in a stronger, I believe, strategy that will maybe educate and make people aware of what the diaspora can contribute to the nation building. So it is simply beyond the political or even the voters registration. But it may take different ways to implement this. Maybe we even start at the state level, where diasporans are allowed to participate in voting in their state levels, so that we can directly contribute to the various states where we came from, in politics, in the economic growth, in the social and scaling up the different businesses that are there. Maybe we start from there, or maybe we start from the presidency. But it is inevitable, completely inevitable, that diaspora will have a voice in the building and in the political process of its nations. We are ready. We are ready. And we believe that we are the catalyst. You need to see diaspora as an asset. We are allies to Nigeria, and it is important that our value is seen beyond remittance. There's so much more that we can bring to the table. And my vote is that diaspora voting for people in international community must be approved. And I'm hoping that the new president, Tinubu, will see also a value in this, him himself being a diaspora.
The enfranchisement of the diaspora is not generally deemed a democratic standard, but is an option every democracy has to consider.
You cannot hold people down for this long and, expect that, they will be clapping for you all the way through. So in any case, the expectation is simple, amend the constitution to allow Nigerians to vote, and then the result will, speak for itself. There are also other areas. I mean, we begin to look at why did it fail. We know that there are fears about cost and so on and so forth. It's going to be very, very expensive. There are smarter ways of doing it than the way we run businesses in Nigeria. There are countries you can take example from. Take India, for instance. I mean, and other, even closer home in West Africa, other countries that actually have a less robust equivalent of INEC, whereby the civil servants play a critical role in, their diaspora voting. As a matter of fact, even in Nigeria, when Senegal had a referendum, recently, it was even our INEC that provided them some of the logistics and materials that they used in carrying out the election. So you see, there will be help when Nigeria needs help, and the embassies can play a role.
Considering the challenges and complexities involved in out-of-country voting, it is generally much more expensive than in-country voting. Could this be the reason why the National Assembly has not been able to pass the bill on the diaspora voting 18 years after it was first presented? Senator Ned Nwoko tells us more.
What has inspired this for me is not just the fact that I lived in England, I know America and other places, but the fact that I find it difficult to understand how a law could be made that will prevent my children, your children, or you yourself from becoming Nigeria's president because you hold a dual nationality. That is nonsense. Once this bill becomes an act, it will cure all that. Because once you are eligible to vote and you are eligible to contest elections, it deals with all of that. So I want every Nigerian abroad to come out and support this. It's not just my fight, it is our fight, collective fight. A lot of Nigerians here might not understand the fact that Nigerians abroad over time have acquired so much knowledge, so much experience.
The new administration has promised diaspora inclusiveness. What are the expectations of the diasporas?
The new administration has promised diaspora inclusiveness is not new. As a matter of fact, I do not know of any government in the past, since 1999, that has not promised diaspora inclusiveness. And so they are very much high on rhetorics, but it is deliberate. It is deliberate because they know what the diaspora brings to the table. Quite apart from, the much flaunted remittances, the human capital that the Nigerian diaspora, bring to the table is simply humongous. What the diaspora is actually saying, and those friends of diaspora, is that if you empower them through diaspora voting, they stand a better chance of doing more and actually facilitating Nigeria's development at a faster rate than what we have today. But above all, this is the right of Nigerians.
President Ahmed Bola Tinubu mentioned diaspora inclusion. That's a great outlook. We actually were excited about that. We also believe that it needs to be complementary with equitable access. The Nigerians in diaspora wants to be part of the process, and we need to move from promises to performance. We need to be part of the planning, we need to be part of the execution, we need to be part of the implementation. And if we are going to play a role, or at least a significant role, in this nation building, which we should, there are certain things that diasporans will need. Safety, a reasonable level of safety, affordable housing. There are some people that are willing to relocate back home, but there's a certain standard of living that they're used to here. We're not asking for mansion, but they can easily come in and be comfortable where there will be access to electricity. There should be access to basic human needs.
I think there ought to be, a systematic effort to redress what appears to be, the exclusion from the system of Nigerians in diaspora from every effort to reinvent and develop Nigeria. There are several ways that this could be done. One, for example, talking about Senator Nwoko's bill, we could actually have the diaspora divided into senatorial districts so that some of those who are interested in being politically involved could be voted and be able to vote during national elections, not just vote for local government chairmen and governors and the president, but also be able to vote for themselves to have a voice in the National Assembly. Also, in terms of inclusiveness, we could also look at the possibility of, making sure that Nigerians who are based here in the diaspora are also recruited into the diplomatic services of Nigeria. They're already exposed to the culture, so who's better placed actually to be able to project Nigeria in the most positive light in the countries where they are resident. So I think that's another way that you can ensure that Nigerians are included in the national polity of Nigeria and they feel included in the entire process.
Do we see these expectations coming to reality?
The logistics and administrative perspective. Implementing diaspora voting will require significant logistical planning, which includes establishment of voting centers abroad, securing the necessary technology and personnel personnel to manage the voting, ensuring the integrity of the process and effectively coordinating with Nigerian organization, which is NIDO, to be able to make this happen. Yes, this could be an expensive, a complex and a costly venture, but it is a necessary one. Nigerians can, come together, collaborate, have one voice to make things happen. We have NIDO in 6 continents. We have in Africa, we have in North America, we have in Europe, we have in Oceania. Nigerians can join wherever they are, so we can have one voice, work together to achieve better goals.
Diaspora voting will never happen as long as we continue to see it from the narrow prism of party politics. Diaspora voting will never happen as long as a leader does not emerge who see this from the broader perspective of non-party politics. Diaspora voting will only emerge when a leader emerges that sees himself or herself as a statesman, that looks beyond tribe, that looks beyond little groupings, and want to use diaspora voting as a way of scoring political points. One can hope that when the distinguished Senator Ned Nwoko decides to champion diaspora voting, that he's doing it from the perspective of actually genuinely organizing the table, seeing beyond his own small political party, reaching across boards to work with different stakeholders, even those that have grouped themselves along political line. That is perfectly okay. But there is no monopoly of groupages, within political lines. As long as you reach out to other political groupings as well, that is fine. Everyone has got to be on the table because in the end, it is Nigeria that wins when diaspora voting, becomes a reality. And so the challenge to the distinguished senator is keep politics out of this, organize everyone from different political groupings, realizing that the 2/3 majority that is needed to make this, to pass diaspora voting into law is not going to come from your party alone. It's going to come from, other political parties, because no political party in Nigeria commands 2/3 majority in both the House of Reps and the Senate. So, magnanimity is important here, open-mindedness, and keeping petty politics out of it is pretty much needed to get diaspora vote to be passed into law.